Hey there, welcome to another episode of Cinepresto. I just watched Code Geass Lelouch of the Resurrection, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit with you guys. First off, the thing is that this movie has been a long time coming for a fan like me. I first watched the show 10, 11 years ago, right when it came out. Actually, my sister was the one who introduced me to this show. We thought it was a TV series back when the first announcement happened at the 10th anniversary. 3 years later, here we are, we finally got the movie released. It took them 3 years to just release this one movie, but man, was the hype large for a long time. I think it was just the fact that it took so long to come out and that it would just be one movie off the get-go that I think had me and a lot of other fans nervous. I actually took my friend Cena, who you've seen in some other videos, and he actually also was worried about how, are they going to mess up Code Geass? Are they going to mess up Lelouch, all the characters that are going to be in it? And I ended up watching the film with him, and they gave us these cool little prints that I have a picture of right here. Did a really good job, surprisingly, overall, with what they just tried to aim for and accomplish within around 2 hours. They hit all the beats, they hit all the familiar little notes, and I think they satisfied a lot of fans, and I'm excited to see what's going to come next. Now, the thing about this is that there's so many cool things that went into this movie. I want to just highlight some of the things that, to me, are the proper way to handle a reboot / revival of something without taking away from the original. First thing is actually that this movie does not take place in the original continuity of the TV series, the acclaimed TV series. It actually takes place in the continuity of the recap films. Now, I actually am probably one of the crazy people in the audience that took the time to look up the recap films. Then, yesterday, I started around 10. I actually marathoned all 3 of the recap films right before I went up to the theater. So from the moment at 10 a.m., and I skipped over a few parts that I knew that they didn't have any changes, I watched all the recap films, and then right at around 6 o'clock, the movie time was at 7 o'clock. I basically finished the show at 6:15 or so, got in the car, and then drove all the way to the theater after I picked up Cena, and then we watched the film together. The thing about these movies is that they are in their own continuity, and they do not adhere to anything that happens in the series. Now, granted, there's only one major change, and that's the fact that Shirley is alive. They cut out the entire plot with Mao, they cut out the entire plot with her discovering and trying to help him in the second season to make time for some of the more important plots and elements. And honestly, I'm actually a fan of Shirley. This is a completely unpopular opinion, but I love that character. I'm glad they brought her back. She didn't really have much to do in the film, and you do not actually need to go watch these recap films before you go see this new one. I still think that overall they did a fantastic job integrating everything together. The fan theories that happened for years were that Lelouch got the code from his father. And if you look at his neck, it actually kind of shifts throughout the movie. It's on the center of his neck. It's on the side of his neck. I think I'm getting into spoiler territory a little bit. But aside from that, they confirmed the fan theory that's been out there for years. And I think that it was pretty gratifying for a lot of fans to see what they thought would happen. And then taking it from there, and then every opportunity after that is to present a twist. Now, let's start with number one. What's the grand thing that I'm trying to get at right here? Number one, when you create a new successor to something that hasn't been touched in a while, make it clear that it's probably it could also be in just a possibility, and it's in an alternate universe in this case. We have many things like Star Wars where after 30 years we get a sequel, right? Presenting it this way, I think, really helped in that you have the original series, right? And this is where Lelouch died. So the fans of that theory know that that version of Lelouch is dead. And then fans like me, who always wanted him to be alive, can see the new version where he's alive. And then you can just carry on the story from there. The second thing I think that they really handled very well are character interactions. You want to make sure that the characters come first and they interact together. No slight against Star Wars. Mark Hamill said many times that he's always wanted himself, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher to work together on screen one last time, and that's just a moment we never got in the new trilogy. They made sure to pretty much handle most of the main ones. They put all the characters that you liked from the first series back together again, so that way you could have that gratifying reunion of each of these character combinations. They all get to meet Lelouch again. That's the main draw of the series, and I think that they hit all the beats in that regard. And the final thing I like to bring up too is to never be afraid of presenting something new and challenging to your protagonist without having to go over the top in trying to recreate what came before, but taking that concept, that initial concept of what your series is, and then taking that to the most extreme degree to present a greater challenge. What do I mean by that? Because you can do it like Dragon Ball does, right? Dragon Ball handles conflict in a way that it's basically, oh, their power levels are getting up, without really taking that concept any further than it's pretty much been the same since the original series with Kid Goku. All the challenges have effectively been, okay, there's a strong opponent. What do I need to do to defeat him? The difference between a series like Code Geass and Dragon Ball, obviously, is that Dragon Ball is all about the numbers game at the end of the day, the power level of it. But early Dragon Ball was more about how creative can you make the scenario. The creative scenario will bring about a perceived challenge, and that's actually more of a real challenge for the viewer to experience with the characters. Code Geass handles this not by saying that, oh, so now that Lelouch is this powerful, we need an opponent to match him to this level. Instead, they actually went and did something pretty interesting. This is where I'm going to get into spoiler territory, so just a forewarning, if you haven't seen Code Geass Lelouch of the Resurrection, stop right here, okay? I'm not going to hold back on any of these spoilers. The way that Lelouch of the Resurrection handles conflict is they actually take Lelouch, right, and put him into a scenario with all your fan favorite characters. So like I said earlier, they take all the characters from before and put them together. So then he has his dream team. There's team members from the Black Knights. There's team members from Britannia, the Britannian Empire. So they're all there together, right? So you've assembled a dream team. In Lelouch's case, he's now immortal. You've created a scenario where your main character cannot die. So, understandably, he's gotten so powerful to the point where there's no more stakes at him anymore. So where do you divert all the drama to? All the drama now goes to the side characters. That means that it's a One Punch Man scenario. Instead of having One Punch Man be the person whose life is at threat, it's all the other side characters that we've come to care about throughout the years who are now at stake. That's a little less impactful than having the main character, but it's still drama that it's there because our main character cares about these characters, and it's reinforced many times throughout this film. The second thing is that in this film, rather than simply trying to take one opponent and to bump their power level up, they actually have 3 opponents with Geass in this film. Rather than make a single entity that is like, I'm more powerful than you. No, I'm more powerful than you. It's 3 different characters with different agendas that each have different uses and abilities. And it also makes it very clear that, okay, Lelouch now has to take out this opponent, and this opponent. He has to be strategic about how he handles that. So the conflict is there. We have these different obstacles that we have to hit. And rather than having to face one big boss in the end, it's just a process of how do I get to a point where I can defeat all 3 of them without interfering with my own plan, right? Because if I take out one, somebody's going to fill in the gaps right there. There's a lot of strategy that applies to it, and I guess I'm trying to hit the Dragon Ball comparison, but I should probably stop with it because it's not one-on-one in that case. For Dragon Ball, it's always been, how can I make the most creative scenario? And that means that sometimes it's changing it up by having them chase the Dragon Balls rather than fighting directly. Sometimes it's being in a tournament, and sometimes it's being out there in the wild fighting an army, right? You know, you can get different scenarios that way. But in the case of Lelouch of the Resurrection, it handles it in a way where conflict is spread out rather than focused on one central antagonist. And I think that that works to its benefit in this case. For a piece that's really about its main character overcoming many obstacles with the intelligence that he's gifted with, they do a good job at presenting something different without really having to worry about giving him something that's so absurdly overpowered that he can't defeat it too. And I think at the end of the day, people did have a lot of questions about plot holes regarding how his thought process works, because the villain's power is basically you get killed, she returns to her body 6 hours early, and this power actually gradually increases, which is a good callback for the original series. People wonder about how he remembers things in between each timeline, but I think the detail is not really meant to be thought about. It's basically the anime protagonist intelligence in this show, and they really handle it, I think, well, giving him a challenge without having to make it so... Yeah, giving him a challenge without having to make it absurdly giving him a challenge without having to focus too much on the villains and focusing more on the main character and what he's there to do. Overall, a great piece. Lelouch is back. the directors have stated that this is the beginning for another 10 years of Code Geass. So I think we're in very much a Steins Gate scenario where there's going to be 10 more years of Steins Gate. So what are we going to see out of this series next? I think a lot of people are curious and really want to know. So we'll talk about some more of that stuff regarding the Steins Gate series in the next video. I've wanted to put out a lot of different videos, and I'm now just gotten to a point where if I'm interested in talking about it, I'll talk about it, and I think people will kind of gravitate. I want to get to a point where I can talk about anything, and then people will just come for the personality at this point. So thank you for watching. I think I'll see you in the next video, and I'll try to make up for a lack of uploads last week by publishing another video actually this Friday. So I'll see you then, okay? Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was good to meet you in person. Okay.